What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? Welcome back to another retro review of The Wire Season 1, Episode 4. And so this episode is called Old Cases. I'm going to try to give y'all the name of the episodes because they are connected. And this does deal with old cases, very important old case. So we start this episode off, well, they had this whole scene with Hurt. And I think it was really just to show just how dumb Hurt can be sometimes, because we've already seen that. So, you know. Now we're down to the courthouse, and they're going through the different people that they arrested when they did that little bullshit raid down to the low risers on the last episode. And of course, the kids that are in juvie, they know ain't nothing really gonna happen. They didn't catch no weight, they didn't catch anybody on camera really doing anything, so they know they didn't really get nothing. So the one dude that they were able to pick up that was over 18, they're trying to actually they picked him up. They have evidence of him in a hand-to-hand with Bubs. And so they're trying to basically get the the book thrown at him so they can try to offer him a deal to flip on Barksdale, which of course he ain't even in a position to flip on Barksdale. He could probably flip on the next person up above him. But when it was all over said and done, he was like, well, look, because they were trying to give him 5 years for like a hand-to-hand. And he was sitting there like, what? Like, when the DA read the charges, he was sitting there like, what? 5 years? Like, you are tripping. So when it was all over said and done and they were trying to flip it, honey, he was like, okay, well, look, I'll just take the weight. Like, I'll just take the years. Like, I'm not about to flip on nobody. Like, it is what it is. I do my 5, I'll be all right. So all of that was a bust. So basically, at the end of the day, all of that went down to the low risers was a bust. They didn't get nothing out of it. So now we see Daniels visiting his boy down at the hospital, the dude that got punched by Bodie, that basically was like, needed to retire, drunk, used to be detective or whatever. He basically has an injury that was more serious than what it looked like, or at least he was able to convince the doctor that it was. And, make a long story short, he's going to be able to retire early with no penalty. Because he was so close and da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, bada-bada bing, bada boom. So he's telling his boy, his little, Daniels goes to visit him, and he's telling Daniels, look, I'm getting ready to retire, I'm about to be out of here. And Daniel's thing is, like, you ain't really doing a whole lot for me, but it's better than nobody. Because I already know they probably ain't going to send me nobody to replace him, So he tells him, look, you think about it, and you tell me, you give me your response. So when Daniels leaves, his boy is there, his little partner in crime. He tells him, he said, look, why don't we go out together? And his friend was like, what you mean? Like, you going out on injury? Like, I ain't injured. He was like, listen, the injury doesn't have to be in the line of duty. Like, it could be something as simple as, he was like, they got us in that basement ass furnace room down in, he said, that hallway is dark sometimes. That stairwell gets dark. He said, all you gotta do, is trip and fall, roll down the steps. And next thing you know, you with me. And he said something about his brother-in-law got a job waiting for him and all this other stuff. So dude was like, ain't no way in the world I'm about to throw myself down no flight of stairs. But later on in the episode, we see him seriously contemplating the child. So we'll see what he end up doing. Now, here's the part. Listen, now The Wire, I have always loved The Wire for its authenticity. But this scene right here, I'm calling bullshit. And the reason why I'm calling bullshit is because I used to work at this particular facility. Bodie is down in juvie, but they sent Bodie to Boys Village. Boys Village is in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, but it's Cheltenham. No, actually, that's Cheltenham. It's like anyway, it's a part of Upper Marlboro called Cheltenham. And it is just that. It was a boys' village. It was a large jail facility that had like, I think they have like maybe 8 or 9 actual like units, like housing units. They have a pool. They got all kinds of stuff going on down there, right? Now, for those of you who follow my YouTube channel, you've seen me do my lives and stuff like that. I've told you guys that I used to work at a juvenile facility, teaching at the school. They have an actual Cheltenham Boys Village is so big. They have an actual school, like it's a regular school. with auditorium and all kinds of stuff. Like, it was a regular size school. So, and the reason why I'm saying that is because I worked at, in my time working in the juvenile detention center, I worked at other facilities where it was not a school. We were in trailers or we were just in rooms. So for it to be a actual school. So anyway, he wakes up in the medical unit because of course they beat his ass. I remember they beat Bodie down. He wakes up in the medical unit. The guy comes in, tells him to put on his clothes and report to whatever. Bodie's still in his street clothes. Number one, that never would have happened. He wouldn't have been processed, meaning like the minute they took him out of his handcuffs, he'd have been put in his uniform. And when I was there, it was khakis and a sweatpants, or they had polo shirts. So number one, that would have never happened. He wouldn't just be chilling in bed and still be in his street clothes. I don't care if he was in the infirmary or not. He would have been processed, and when he was processed, he'd have been put into the uniform. Number two, wouldn't nobody just come in there talking about something you report as soon as you get up? No, because they're in handcuffs. When they're moved from one place to the next, they are put in handcuffs if they have to move out like that. Or they're with a guard the whole time. If they're not put in, they're with a guard the whole time. So all of that, like, anyway, I call bullshit. Because what ended up happening was Bodie was left unattended, and he took a janitor's bucket and wheeled right on out the front door. And then, no, that's not how that shit works. That's not how any of that works. So I call bullshit, but it's a movie. It is what it is. I mean, it's not a movie. It's a TV show, but it is. Now, 99% of what The Wire gives us, I know to be very factual, but because I worked at, and you even see on there where you see the sign, it says Boys Village, Cheltenham, Maryland. I worked there. Now, they don't call it Boys Village anymore. They just call it Cheltenham. I think because there was a lot of negative things that came with Boys Village. It became known, so they took that out. But it's in Cheltenham, Maryland. Now, let me tell you guys something. People have escaped from Boys Village. I ain't sitting here saying that it's impenetrable. But it ain't that easy either. Bodie ends up walking out the front door, and as Hurt and Carver are on their way down there to go talk to Bodie, and I don't know if they were going to go interview him and transport him back or whatever the situation is, as they're turning into the facility, Bodie is out on the street hitchhiking. Let me explain something else to you. Bodie is in street clothes with blood, looking bad, beat up, bandaged up. Everybody in the neighborhood knows what Boys Village is. Do you really think that he'd have been out there hitchhiking for longer than 5 minutes before somebody would have called and said, I think y'all need to come out here and see what's going on, because y'all got somebody out here on the main road. But that's just me. I'm throwing my little 2 cents in. We're going to come back. All right. Now, McNulty is with Bunk, and they're actually going through old case files, trying to connect any of these old case files to Creek to build a bigger case against Avon Barksdale. And his lieutenant comes through, or his captain, whoever the guy is, he comes through and he gives him a case. Now, basically, what his captain is doing is giving them a cold case that they really have no shot in hell of solving. He has absolutely no idea whether this case is connected to D'Angelo or Avon Barksdale. But because one of the witnesses in the case said that the victim had last been seen with somebody named D, he's like, D'Angelo, right? McNulty is like, how many people do you think have a street name of D'Angelo? I mean, of D. Like, that doesn't mean it belongs to us. So, his captain is like, okay, well, how many cases have y'all found yet that are connected to Avon? And how many of those cases belong to us? So, if you want to build up this case file, like, you need to do me a solid. Like, at the end of the day, McNulty, you have made everybody's life around here some shit. So, take this case off my hands. So, Bunk takes the case, even though they don't believe that case has anything to do with Avon Barksdale, but it's a young woman who was killed in some apartment complexes that are in, like, outside of the city. Like, I think it was in Randallstown. Randallstown is outside of Baltimore. It's not in Baltimore proper. It's right out, but it's like the suburbs of Baltimore. So, of course, none of them think it's connected. And the only thing they have in the case file is, like, pictures of the crime scene and, like, a write-up of what happened. It's like no police work was done on this case at all. And, of course, Bunk is like, God damn, he got us, right? So they know that basically they got handed a lemon. Put a pin in that. We'll be back. So we get down to, we see that Kima has Buzz with her, am I skipping ahead too much? A lot happened, so I don't want to make sure I'm skipping ahead too much. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and talk about Miss Kima. So Kima has Bubs riding around with her. They looking for the white van. They looking for Omar's van. And Kima was like, "Are you sure? You know, you got the right license plate and all that?" And Bubs was like, "I know what I saw. Like, I know what I saw. I saw them riding around." And so they get to talking or whatever, and he was like, "Well, word on the street is that, you know, Omar did it." She was like, "Omar? Who's Omar?" And he was like, "You don't know Omar?" He was like, "Omar is like, he been out here robbing and thieving for years down here. Like, he's legendary." And she said, "Well, does he have a last name?" Bubs was like, "He ain't got no last name. He don't need no last name." But word is, Anthony, what they call him, No Hit Anthony or something Anthony, word is that that's his brother. And Kima was like, "Who?" Bubs was like, "I know you're not going to sit here and tell me you don't know who that person is." Bubs said, "I'm ashamed to be your snitch right now if you don't know who No Hit Anthony is." So she's like, "Whatever, Bubs, just keep looking for the damn van." She realizes what time it is and she's going to be late for class. So she puts in a call to see if anybody can pick up Bubs from her so she could go ahead and get to class on time. McNulty answers the call. McNulty is like, "Look, I got something I need to do first, but Bubs, you know, you can ride with me and then I'll swing back through and I'll drop you off a little bit later on." Bubs ain't got nowhere to go, and the longer he with them, the more he getting. I'm sure they feeding him, they giving him money in his pocket, so he know that when it's all over said and done, he gonna get high. He ain't even tripping. McNulty ends up taking him to his son's soccer game because McNulty and his wife, of course, they're in the middle of this bitter, nasty ass divorce, and he's not seeing his son as much as he wants to, and the visitation is screwed up or whatever. And Bubs is with them. Now, let me say this: I don't necessarily feel like I understand. Like, the minute McNulty's wife saw, or ex-wife or whatever, saw Bubs get out that car, she felt some kind of way for a couple of reasons. One, I'm sure she looked at Bubs and immediately was like, "Okay, you know, you can tell the difference," which we saw in last week's episode. You can tell the difference between a police detective pretending to be a crackhead and a real crackhead. It was clear immediately that Bubs was a real crackhead. And so, of course, she's looking like, "I know this mofo did not just bring this crackhead to my son's soccer game." Then Bubs want to try to shake her hand, and she gave him the look of death. Bubs was like, "All right, whatever." So I kind of understood where she was coming from. I kind of felt it. Like, I didn't feel like she was being too judgmental. I mean, his job was probably already a bone of contention between them when they were together, on top of him having an affair. So I could definitely see kind of where she was coming from. But anyway, the two of them end up getting to an argument, honey, and it was "fuck you, well, fuck you too" type of situation. But whatever. So he ends up dropping Bubs off later on that night, and Bubs is like, "You know what, like, your world is night and day from what I got going on here." You know, and they kind of had a moment where you could see the dichotomy of their life, you know, the night, the day, the black and white. Now, Omar then took Avon's package and he's selling it. He done set up his own little connect and he's selling his package. We see him and we see his two accomplices sitting there talking. They making money, life is good. And he was like, "Yeah," he said, "you know, it worked, you know, it's all good, but we were a little sloppy on that last little, you know, that last move." And you know, he was like, "Yeah," you know, the boy was like, "Yeah, I said your name, you know, I'm sorry, that's on me." And he was like, you know, Omar was like, "It's all good." He said, "I ain't really tripping about them knowing me." He was like, "They done known me for years." He said, "But I don't want them to connect me to y'all and come for y'all. Like, that's my issue." And then we see him put his arm around the young guy, the little redhead boy. And he, you know, and the third dude that's with them has this look of disgust. Like, you know, clearly he's with Avon. Oh Lord, Avon. Clearly he's with Omar out of necessity, not necessarily desire. Because what everybody may or may not know about Omar is that Omar is a thug. Omar is a gangster, but Omar is also very gay. He lives in his truth, and he don't give a fuck how y'all feel about it. So that's his boyfriend. Everybody know that's his boyfriend. And he was, you know, kissing him on his forehead and had his arm around him, calling him baby and stuff. And this third partner was just totally disgusted by the whole thing. Omar was unbothered. Omar even kind of like came on to him a little bit at the end. He was like, "You staying here tonight?" He was like, "Nah, I'm going to go check on my mom." And he was like, "Oh, okay." You know, he's like, "You sure?" And he rubbing on his shoulder and everything. He was like, "Yeah, nah, I'm good." And like I said, it's clear that they're connected out of some sort of necessity, not desire, because He ain't feeling the whole Omar got a boyfriend thing. Anyway, so Avon and his crew, we got we got nope, not Omar. Barksdale. We got Barksdale, we got Stringer Bell, we got Weebay. And basically Omar's like, listen, not only do I want Omar ass, Avon Omar. Not only do I want Omar ass strung up, but I want to make a example out of him. He was like, when people go hunting and they put their trophies out for everybody to see what they picked up, he was like, that's what I want. Um I want to be able. I want the neighborhood. I want the towers to see what happens when you rob me. We need to make an example out of him. He was like, so basically, I want let the streets know we putting $1,000 on his accomplices. I'm putting 2 on him. And so Weebay was like, yeah. He said, my boy was locked up with him down in Jessup, and he is a whole gay dude. He was using the slurs. I won't use the slurs, but anyway. And, Avon was like, he gay? He was like, yeah, he a whole gay dude. Like, he got a whole set of boyfriends and, like, a whole rotation going on down there in Jessup. And he was like, really? He was like, so, on top of everything else, this dude gay? He was like, man, make it double that. He was like, he said, and as a matter of fact, he was like, add another 2,000 to it if I get a chance to holler at him, right? Basically, Alive is 6,000, dead is 4,000, but however it get done, it's going to get done. He's like, put that word out so we can, make it happen. He was like, all right, cool. So then Stringer, after Weebay and them leave, Stringer has a one-on-one with Avon, and he said, how my cousin doing? And he was like, your cousin doing all right, like he making money, but I don't know. He was like, I feel like maybe he got a problem, and he ain't too sure he got a problem yet. He was like, keep an eye on it. So, they making that happen. So we back down to the low rises. We got the guys down there, D'Angelo, Michael Jordan, the rest of Michael B. Jordan, they down there. Weebay come walking up, he limping, he fucked up, he still all bruised and beat up. And they were like, yo, how you get down here? He was like, how you get out so fast? And he holds up a screwdriver. He done stole a car and drove back to Baltimore. Now, I'm going to just let that ride. I'm going to let it ride, y'all. I ain't going to bring up the fact that Upper Marlboro is about a good hour away from the inner city of Baltimore. I'm going to let that go that he probably ain't had no gas. I'm going to let that go that there wasn't no GPS back then. I'm going to let all that shit go. We just going to accept the fact that Weebay showed up, back down to the low risers, talking shit. He talking about yeah, that little juvie detention shit can't hold me, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm ready. Basically, I'm ready for the big boys. And D'Angelo was like, boy, please. Like, he started laughing. He was like, what you laughing at? What you think you know? D'Angelo was like, really, dude? Like, I'm the person that just served 5 months on a murder charge. Like, you don't know. Like, I just, basically waiting for my trial before I beat that murder charge. He was like, I got that body. He go, one. He said, one that you know about. So he proceeds to tell them, which I will never understand why he told them this story. But he proceeds to tell them the story about another person he killed. He tells us a story about this young lady who lives out in Randallstown, living in this floor level apartment. He said she used to be one of his uncle's women. She got pissed off at the uncle when she found out she wasn't the only one he was seeing, and she started threatening to go to the police. Well, y'all know that's the last thing you're going to threaten a criminal with is to go to the police, because either if you're going to do it, just better move in silence and get it done. But when you start threatening, you're going to do it. That's a quick way to find yourself in a early death, and that's exactly what happened. Unc took D'Angelo out there to do the do. And D'Angelo tells a story about how he walked around the back, and he tapped on the window, and she was naked, and, and blah, 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 and how beautiful she was and all of that. But he tells him a story about how he shot her ass. She was standing in the kitchen. She ain't had no clothes on. Now, immediately, you are reminded of the story of the cold case that Bunk and McNulty got stuck with, because in the crime photo, she was naked. It was an apartment out, in Randallstown. She had a floor level apartment. So you are immediately reminded, oh my gosh, that murder is connected to Avon Barksdale. They don't even know that they really did stumble on an actual case, right? So we'll come back to that. Now, Burrell goes down to see the judge because in Burrell's mind, I've done enough to get the judge off my ass. We did some transactions. We made some arrests. Boom, boom, boom. We can go back to life as usual. We can get rid of this fake ass, you know, detail, and we can go back to life as usual, and the judge will be off my ass. So he presents the judge with what they've done, and the judge was like, but did you get Avon Barksdale? He was like, I don't even see Avon Barksdale's name on any of this paperwork. He was like, it seems to me. And he said, yeah, but you know, we made some arrests and we did this and we did that. He was like, it seems to me like y'all got more work to do. So of course Burrell is pissed because he thought they could just like, you know, do a couple of little make it look good type things and they could move on. But of course the judge is not going for that. Next thing you know, we see Carver and Herc busting down the door on Weebay's house, and looks like it's his grandmother. And you know, she was so calm about it. She let them in, and they ran up the steps, and you could hear them tearing up stuff upstairs. And she sat down and for honey finished folding her laundry, and they came on downstairs, and they left out, and they opened the door, motherfucker, you know, and all of that. And Herc ended up, Carver ended up. They left, but Herc came down the stairs last, and you know, when he saw that basically that woman was there by herself and they came in there like they came in there, he was very apologetic. He was like, ma'am, I'm sorry, you know, I apologize for cursing, and I apologize for the way we came in here. If I had known you were here by yourself, you know, I apologize. And she was like, you here looking for, I think his name was Preston, if not, that's what we're gonna call him. And she said, it's the drugs again? And he was like, yes ma'am, you know. And she said, look, he came here after his mama died. And I knew immediately that he was angry. His mama had him in the streets. That's all he's ever known. And that's what he does. He runs the streets. She was like, basically, he don't be here. And I know he do what he do, but I can't do nothing about it. And so, you know, then he's real, like, feeling like some shit. So, you know, he apologizes again. And then he tells her, you know, if he comes by, just tell him to give me a call, and he leaves his business card with her. Okay, so next we see McNulty. The judge ended up calling McNulty down to the furnace room, which he know better than that. But anyway, McNulty goes outside and calls him on the payphone, and basically he lets McNulty know, yeah, they came down here with that bullshit, and I kicked it back because we still ain't got what we wanted. Like, we still ain't getting our man. So I kicked that shit back. So then we see McNulty's lieutenant meeting up with the captain. And he tells this whole long drawn out crass ass story. But at the end of the day, he's saying, look, I need McNulty back. Like, McNulty might be an asshole. He might be making my life a living hell right now, but he's good police. And right now, I need him. Like, he knows how to clear cases. Like, he knows how to do his job. And so, you know, the captain tells him, look, give it about another 3 weeks for this bullshit ass task force, and I'll kick him. When it's time to come back, I'll let him come back. Like, I ain't gonna punish him any further. I'm gonna go ahead and let you have him back. He's like, okay, appreciate it. So, next we see Kima with her girlfriend, and I think this is just a scene so that we can see that Kima has this relationship with the girlfriend, and she is in school, but things are sort of not, you know, she's still more caught up in her police work than she really is with school, and it sounds like the school thing, it might be more along the lines of her making the girlfriend happy than necessarily what it is that she wants. Because she says, well, you know, you said that you wanted something different. You said you want to get out of this. And Kima was just like, yeah, but, you know, the case is just this and the case is just that. So, but while they're there, what Kima does see is the cell phone bill. And Kima realizes that on a cell phone bill, y'all got to remember how long ago this was, that on a cell phone bill, you see all the ins and outs. You see every incoming call. You see every outgoing call. In the meantime and in between time, Burrell meets up with Daniels. Because now he pissed off because the judge then kicked it back to him. Now he kicking it back to Daniels, and he telling Daniels, look, we got to make this shit look better than what it look right now. Like, they ain't buying it. You know, we got to keep this going a little bit longer. And, of course, Daniels is saying, look, I don't know what else you want me to do. Like, we doing the hand-to-hands. Like, we doing, you know, the buys. Like, you know, what you want? What more you want? You gave me shit. I'm trying to make lemonade out of lemons, but I don't know what else you want me to do. And, of course, he tells him, figure it out. He's like, okay, so if I come to you with some more, you got my back. He was like, listen, Whatever it takes to get the judge off of our back, we're going to make happen. Now, remember last week, I told you guys that Freeman went into the stash house after they rounded up everybody, and he wrote that phone number down off the wall? Well, he has a hunch. He has a hunch because it had D next to it. He has a hunch that that number belongs to D'Angelo. So he goes down to the low rises and he actually calls the number from his cell phone. He sees D'Angelo checking his pager, going over to the payphone and actually calling the pager. So when Daniels, so he has verified that that's D'Angelo's cell phone. So when Daniels goes down, he has his staff meeting. He's telling them, look, we need to figure something else out. Now, Kima and McNulty had already sort of like put their head together and come up with the idea of trying to clone, presenting the idea to Daniels about cloning the pager. But of course, McNulty is like, you know, if I say it, he ain't gonna go for it. So Kima, we gotta flip it in a way that it's coming from you, that Daniels is gonna go for it. He said, I already know what we got to do in order to do the paperwork. We got to show that we've tried everything first to do the paperwork. We did the, he said basically doing that little bullshit bust last week might not have been a bad thing because it actually showing that we went through all these different steps. So they get down to the meeting and they're presenting it to Daniels, and Daniels is going for it. He's like, okay, we're gonna clone the pager. He was like, well, do we have a phone number? Here come Freeman. Freeman's got the phone number. He told him that not only did he have the hunch, not only did he write the number down, and he had a hunch that the number belonged to D'Angelo. He went down, he verified it. He even got a picture to prove that it was D'Angelo's phone number. So they cooking with grease now, and now McNulty is looking at Freeman like, wait a minute. Like, you keep playing games like you ain't really no real detective, but you really are a real detective. Like, I got my eye on you. So Buck ends up calling McNulty to get him to work that crime scene with him with that case that they got dropped off with. So anyway, I'm sorry, so Daniel's just gonna go along. They're gonna do the paperwork to clone the pages and stuff, and and all the payphones that are in the area of the towers, to create that trail. So Bump got McNulty to do the like I said, got McNulty to do the to work the crime scene with him. Now, luckily for them, when they get down there, luckily for them, the apartment hadn't been rented out yet where the young lady had been killed. So they get in there, and this whole scene, I would love to hear like a behind the scenes of this particular scene, because they were hilarious in this moment. Like, they're working the scene and they're going through it. I mean, they're being meticulous and they're working it and they're figuring it out, and they writing down stuff and they measuring shit and they figuring out, I mean, they're working this crime scene, but the whole time they're mother, like the whole time. But it was so funny. Like, you could tell that was like their process. That was how they worked stuff out. But when it was all over said and done, they had figured out that the young lady had been standing at the refrigerator with the door open, with no clothes on, probably getting something to drink out the refrigerator, and got shot. They figured out that the shot came from outside and from the trajectory of the shot. And once they were able to do that, they were able to dig. They found the bullet from, was it throughout, because it ricocheted off the wall and hit her or something like that. But they were able to dig in the wall and into the refrigerator, and they were able to find the bullet. And then outside, they found the casing from the gun. So now they know what kind of gun did it. They know how it happened, like what, that he was standing outside and came through. And it's exactly as D'Angelo had described in his story that he told Bodie and them. So we're like, so now you're sitting there like, oh boy, they're one step closer to putting all this shit together. Now, in the meantime, while they're talking, McNulty asked Bunk about Freeman. He was like, look, I thought Freeman was a bust, but it seemed like he is really doing some good police work. And Bunk told McNulty, like, look, Freeman is the real deal. He said, well, what happened to him? Like, how he get, basically, what did he do to get in trouble? He was like, you need to ask him. So he does. McNulty gets back to the furnace room, and he says to Freeman, he said, look, he said, I thought you wasn't, I really thought you wasn't shit. But I see that, you really are a detective. And Bunk tells me you were, back in the day, you was really about that. And he was like, yeah. He said, well, where were you working out of? He was like, I was working out of pawn shop detail. He was like, what is that? He was like, pawn shops get inventory. They suspect it's stolen. I write it down on the index card. I file it. If somebody think something was stolen from them, I check the see if they see if their property's on that file. And basically, and he said, well, I just thought he like, because this is when he was talking to Bunk. I'm sorry. He said, well, I thought he just like sitting there playing with his damn doll houses all day. He said, don't get it twisted. He make more money selling one of them doll houses than you make all year. Like, don't get it twisted. He's good with the doll houses. And he said he's been down there in the pawn shop department for 13 years. So McNulty was like, can I buy you a drink? He said, just one. So they end up going out for drinks and they basically have the conversation. He's like, how did you end up on this shit detail? Like, who did you piss off? And he explained to them that, that he was, investigating a murder, and one of the people involved in the murder had connections to somebody downtown. He was told not to include them in the investigation, make the case without them, and just out of sheer, you're not going to tell me how to work my case, he made sure to include the person. He said, and I guess, they ain't appreciated, so there I was on pawn shop detail. He said, well, how did it even come to be? He said, well, my lieutenant asked me, what is it that you don't want? He said, and he was so sincere about it. Like, I thought he really was like, gonna make sure that I didn't end up somewhere I didn't want to be, even though I was kind of on the shit list. And I told him, I said, you can, bump me back down to foot patrol. That's fine. Let me stay outside. Let me do police work. He said, but the last thing I want is an office job. He said, and that's how I ended up at an office job. He said, he said, do me a favor. He said, next time somebody asks you where you want to be, he was like, don't be honest. And remember, going back to the first episode, when they first got pissed off at McNulty, remember what he told his lieutenant? He didn't want to be nowhere near the water because the water makes him nauseous. Remember that? That's going to be important. So but the look on McNulty's face is like, fuck. So he already know he's screwed. So, last but not least, I know this is running long, y'all, but this was a good one. It was a lot of information in this. We're back down to the projects, and now they're following D'Angelo. But they don't want to actually keep up with D'Angelo. They want D'Angelo to know he's being followed, but to be able to lose them. And I'm assuming, because again, I some of this stuff I don't be following until I see like where it happens. I feel like the idea is to get D'Angelo to use a bunch of payphones, because then they can clone. Once they get one, then they can keep cloning and they can keep pinging those particular payphones. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'm sure in the next episode it'll become evident. So that's what they did. McNulty goes to check in on Kima to make sure that things went well. Kima was like, it happened. We did it. We lost him. It's good. We good. It's straight. And that's pretty much where this episode ends, y'all. So we're starting to see how stuff is connected and who's who and what's what. We getting the players. We starting to see who's really about that and who really is on some bullshit. And that is pretty much it. So let me know what y'all think. Drop it in the comments. Peace.